WAOK.com. You can also go to the Odyssey app and search for News and Talk 1380 WAOK. We are also broadcasting live on the Flow Television Network. That is the Flow Television Network. And you can check us out on the web. The flow.lightcast.com is the website. Once again, Sean Garvey hanging out with you between now and 9 p.m. for the mental space in which we talk about all things considered mental health in our community. So let's do it. You know what we do at the very beginning of every show. We do our breathing exercise. Let's go ahead and do it all together. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Just a quick exercise for everybody out there that are dealing with some form of stress, that had a day of anxiety, a long day. You need to do that every single day to release all that tension out of you. So make sure you take a moment to do your breathing exercise. Got a great show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on the mental space. My executive producer, Simone, in the studio, as well as my AP assistant in the studio as well, Michelle Dawes Birt. So everybody's been talking about Carlee Russell. According to police, Carlee Russell admits that there was no child or kidnapping, and she apologizes. The disappearance of Carlee Russell, which has been a media circus over the past few days, was declared a hoax, according to local police. Now authorities are investigating possible criminal charges. During a news conference held by Alabama authorities on Monday, a statement from Russell's attorney admitted she was not kidnapped and did not encounter a toddler along Interstate 459. A lot of conversations have been brought up about Carlee Russell. I don't want to take too much time to talk about Carlee Russell because it is too soon to me, in my observation, to consider this a mental illness, a mental health issue. I know a lot of people have been using mental health to tie it in with Carlee Russell. But as I was talking to a family member of mine a couple of days ago, we were talking about the Carlee Russell situation. And I alluded to, in today's world, that there are people out there that do things for attention. We already have social media, which a lot of us are consumers of it. We go to social media and we see a lot of people do things for attention. It's just like that song that Offset from Migos did. You know, they do anything for clout. They do anything for clout, right? And yeah, there are people that do everything for clout. But there's also people that do things for attention. And it could go all the way back to childhood, not getting the attention that they thought that they should have gotten from their parents or from their community or from family members. So I'm waiting to hear more facts and more details behind Carlee Russell and why she did what she did. But once again, I want to stress the 3-digit number, 988. If you or someone you know is in a mental health crisis, 988. The 3-digit number, you should lock that in your phone right now. But yes, this investigation on Carlee Russell is still ongoing. I think there's going to be a lot more to this story than what meets the eye. But it's too soon, too premature for me to consider this as a mental health issue. There have been plenty of people that have done the same thing that Carlee Russell has done. But, you know, it's just too soon for me to consider this as a mental health illness or a mental health issue with Carlee Russell. But we shall see. All right, tonight's show is going to be a great one, ladies and gentlemen. We are still in the month of July. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Of course, we are going to have the gentlemen, the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated to come on into the mental space to talk about their initiative and to also talk about National Minority Mental Health Month. And plus, my executive producer, Simone, will be playing clips from yesterday's address by our very own President Joe Biden, on what he plans to do with mental health. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. This is the Mental Space, Sean Garvey on WAOK 1380 and on the Flow Television Network.
Now hit relay. You gotta be quick. Shirley, you ready?
Welcome.
Don't wait.
Welcome back to the Mental Space with Sean Garvey right here on News Talk 1380 WAOK, WAOK.com, and on your Odyssey app. Look for News Talk 1380 WAOK, and don't forget to tell Alexa, play News and Talk 1380 WAOK. I am Sean Garvey. This is the show in which we talk about all things considered mental health in our community. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Ooh, okay. All right. Live radio. You gotta love it. Sean Garvey in the studio. All right. So, like I mentioned before the break, July is National Minority Mental Health Month, and this is the month in which we acknowledge those, especially in the minority community, facing mental health or mental issues or mental illness. Each year, millions of Americans face the reality of living with a mental health condition. Mental health conditions do not discriminate based on race, color, gender, or identity. Anyone can experience the challenges of mental illness regardless of their background. However, background and identity can make access to mental health treatment much more difficult. And on the phone lines, once again, like I said, live radio, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. That's on my end, so it's not on the other people's end. It's on my end. Joining with us right here on the Mental Space on WAOK 1380 and on the Flow Television Network. We got two gentlemen joining with us via Zoom, and there's this new initiative that is out called Brother, You Are on My Mind, which is in partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and the Omega Psi-Phi Fraternity Incorporated. The initiative is intended to raise awareness of the mental health challenges associated with depression and stress that affect African American men and their families. First joining with us is the vice chair and one of the members and the men of Omega Psi-Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We have Dr. Jaden Phillips, MD. Good evening, Dr. Phillips. Welcome to the Mental Space. How are you doing? How's your mental health? All right. Do we have Dr. Phillips on the line? Okay. Dr. Phillips? Okay, we're going to be joined by Dr. Phillips in just a few moments. Also joining with us right here on the Mental Space. Also, part of the men of Omega Psi-Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we have Lewis Hines, PhD. Dr. Lewis, are you there with us? Okay. Do we have Lewis? Okay. All right. So as we get both, yep. Lewis, are you there? Is this Lewis? You're live on the air, Lewis. Can you hear us? Oh, okay. All right. So we're going to work on that in just a few moments right here on the Mental Space with Sean Garvey. Once again, we're working on getting the two gentlemen from the initiative Brother, You Are on My Mind, which is a partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and the Omega Psi-Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Once again, this initiative is intended to raise awareness of the mental health challenges. Okay. Is this Lewis or is this? All right. Gentlemen, you live on the air. Okay, let's bring them down. I don't think they know how to use Zoom. I don't think they know how to use Zoom. Let's bring them down for a moment there, so until they can get their life in order. Once again, we're working on getting the two gentlemen from the men of Omega Psi-Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Joining with us in just a few moments will be Dr. Jaden Phillips. Just to give you a little bit of background information on Dr. Jaden Phillips. Actually, I'm gonna have him share with our listeners a little bit about his background, as well as Dr. Lewis Hines, PhD. Okay, so do we have the gentleman on, Dr. Lewis or Dr. Phillips? Can you hear us? I guess not. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to keep it moving. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. We're going to work on trying to get the two gentlemen on the live line with us. Once again, we are on the Flow Television Network, by the way. So make sure you download the Flow app to your Roku TV. That's the flow.lightcast.com. The flow.lightcast.com. You can also download the Flow app to your television so you can watch the Mental Space. So here's how it works. You can listen to the Mental Space we want to encourage you to listen to the Mental Space on 1380 WAOK, but we also are having people watch us on Roku TV, the Flow Television Network. So do we have them on?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Phillips or Dr. Hines, you're live on the air. All right, good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing? All is well. Okay, sorry. All right, so we got the two gentlemen on, the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. Of course, July is National Minority Mental Health Month. I want to ask you first, Dr. Phillips, what does the National Minority Mental Health Month mean to you?
I think it speaks to us bringing attention to a problem or an issue that is a big issue in our community. We don't necessarily, people have negative towards maintaining or managing their own mental health. And unfortunately, I think we also see that overall is a challenge as far as access to mental health care. So I think it's an important time because it allows us to bring highlight to a problem that may not have had words to describe it in some situations with families, but it also can educate people on the process of if I do have a mental health issue, I'm anxious or depressed, it can give you some information about what steps you need to take to begin to access help that can help you deal with what you're going through.
Oh, okay. All right, that's a good point. That's a very valid point. And what about you, Mr. Hines, Dr. Lewis Hines? What does mental health, or what does the month of minority mental health mean to you? Four 726-1380 is the telephone number. We have Dr. Jaden Phillips, MD, as well as Dr. Lewis Hines, both gentlemen, the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity, on the live line with us to talk about Brother You Are On My Mind, a partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities, and we're going to talk about that. And plus, we're going to play some clips from President Biden's address, and we're going to talk about all things considered, minority mental health, and more. Okay, gentlemen, so stay tuned. We got news at the bottom of the hour. It is the Mental Space on WAOK and on the Flow Television Network.
You're now in tune into the mental space. My man is Sean Garvey.
Follow the Mental Space on social media at Mental Space Live on Instagram and Twitter.
All right, stay tuned, y'all.
Mental Space Live is the Mental Space.
And the worst part about it is they'll be affecting someone negatively. Someone else will come along. They won't see the real victim. They feel sorry for the person. Oh, how long have they been this? Oh, all their life. Oh, have we seen someone? Oh, yes, they have. What's the problem? They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not taking their medication. They're not getting therapy. They think that they're fine. So I'm happy to try and talk about this. I hope you talk about the other victims when the individuals don't do what they're supposed to do, don't get that critical help that they need, don't follow through with the diagnosis and the treatment, and how other people around them become victims to their mental health. So that's what if you can touch on that for me, that will help a lot. I've learned so much over these last couple of months, and I'm just like, I don't see certain individuals as victims. At this point, I'm the victim because you are exposed to me to something that you know that you have, but you're not addressing, and now you are affecting my life in a negative way.
Okay. Thank you so much, Deborah, for your call and for your key points there. I don't like using the word victim. I think you are only a victim if you don't want to go get the help that you need to go get. So I'm going to turn it over to the gentlemen of the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated to answer that question for you, Deborah. Appreciate you. I'm going to start with Dr. Jaden Phillips of the Men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. Dr. Phillips, what is your take on what our listener Deborah had to say on men and mental health? Let's say you.
Well, first it's
Not Jaden, so I just want to correct it.
Sorry.
As a primary care physician that deals with a variety of chronic conditions that unfortunately you have situations where you can lay the plan out for someone to do something and they don't do it. That's not just an issue we see with men and mental health, but we see it in a variety of spaces. I think there's some other dynamics that play a role in mental health issues in our community. Number one, we have a pretty significant stigma when it comes to mental health. A lot of us have not even looked at it as a real problem. So appreciating that a problem like a mental health issue like depression or anxiety can be just as impactful as having a heart attack or other significant medical issues is not always something that everybody truly understands. I think also when we look at this, we have to look at the issue of access. And with access, you have a lot of individuals that don't know how to engage their doctor or follow up or have the resources to do so that they're able to take care of this problem in an effective way without it impacting other people. And I think lastly, this type of circumstance or taking a more preventive approach when it comes to your mental health or overall health care isn't really a strategy that we have as African Americans, whether we are insured or not. We have a significant amount of us that don't have any access to primary care. We don't get physical exams. We walk around with problems that have been diagnosed, but we choose not to deal with them. And this can happen with individuals that, as I said, have access via insurance. But again, we are a community, and I've been in that stage at points in my life in my younger years where I was on survival mode. So if it didn't kill me and I needed to work, then, my priority was work, even if I wasn't feeling my best. So I do think that it is unfortunate, as a woman was expressing about her frustrations in having someone who has a path and a plan that they're not taking advantage of. And definitely, just like any other medical issue can have an impact or spill over into areas of other members of their family or loved ones, I think that we've got to also deal with this with a state and a sense of compassion, because it is not an easy thing for someone who, quote unquote, has been strong or labeled. she was too intellectually intimidating.
Well. Before we go to Dr. Hines, we're going to take a break from the radio, and when we come back, we're going to hear what Dr. Hines have to say on the subject of minority mental health. But we still want to hear from you, listeners, ladies and gentlemen, on the mental space. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. It is Sean Garvey, the mental space, WAOK, and on the Flow Television Network. Welcome back to the Mental Space. It's Sean Garvey right here on News Talk 1380 WAOK, also on the Odyssey app and as well as on the Flow Television Network. Sean Garvey hanging out with you between now and 9 p.m. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Have the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines on Zoom call, 404-726-1380. We're talking about National Minority Mental Health Month. And I want to go over to Dr. Hines. Of course, I know Dr. Hines wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Phillips stated in reference to Deborah, who called in addressing the conversation that we are having tonight about minority mental health. So please, Dr. Hines, you have the floor now.
Treatment. I think it's important. It's an important approach to the topic of mental health. You have to approach it with a lot of sensitivity and respect of the individual. I think that you have to be understanding and empathetic, listen to their concerns without judgment, and try to understand their reasons for that refusal. Validate their reasons, their feelings, let them know that you care about their well-being. And secondly, I think that educating and providing information, sometimes offering information about mental health condition and treatment options and the benefits of seeking help, I think that provides them with valuable resources and that they can make a better judgment and call. And also, I think sharing personal experience, if you had a positive experience with mental health support or know someone who has, I think sharing these stories can help reduce the stigma around seeking help, and I think that person will consider about getting help if you share your own personal stories.
Oh, okay. Very great point. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number, National Minority Mental Health Month. And to me, just to piggyback on both of you gentlemen, National Minority Mental Health Month to me means the ongoing awareness of people of color and minorities and people who have faced injustice, who have faced adversities based on the color of their skin and based on how they are treated, whether it's in the boardroom or whether it's in underprivileged areas, underprivileged communities. And I think minority mental health and Minority Mental Health Month is important, is paramount, because we need to have these conversations, just like we are doing right now, gentlemen, on the mental space, to address the issues and the discrepancies that are happening in our community. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. We're going to go over to the phone lines and speak to Todd. I usually don't bring Todd on towards the end of the program because I know he sometimes have a bunch of questions, but Todd, welcome to the mental space. What's going on? Okay.
Yes.
So often when we talk about mental health issues, rather minority or majority population, we talk about mental unhealthy issues. There's a lot of issues that apply to someone's well-being and their mental health that are positive. And from in your position, can you talk about and elaborate on things that are directly related to mental good health that occur in the minority community, or that the minority community should be aware of in order for them to push further ahead through any adversity, such as family planning, such as if you go to, you hear me okay still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, such as if you make a decision to go to someone's college or technical school, a plan put in place to how to get through it and what to do once you do get through it. And the same thing with occupation and pursuing of a spouse. Pursuing of connecting families through a spouse. Because these are all mental healthy pursuits that people often find themselves struggling with, but not struggling to the point where it works against them in life. It just slows down their accomplishments in life when they don't plan well. Could you talk about these things?
Okay. If I'm hearing you right, the question is the benefits of having good mental health?
Not the benefits, just the benefits of having good mental health, but the steps to move to good mental health in order to take full advantage of it, such as planning well for your education, planning well for your work, planning well for uniting two families through matrimony, planning well for individual major
checkups that you need to go through. These are all things that are related to mental healthiness. We speak too much about mental health, and we're talking about mental unhealthy. Can you talk about your experiences with helping people with mental healthy pursuits?
Yeah, I think that mental healthiness is a positive trait that will help you in those areas and maintain good choices like emotional well-being. Good mental health allows individuals to experience a wide range of emotional or positive emotions, and so such as happiness and being content. And when things go bad, you have that resiliency to pop back up and persevere through it. So I think that mental healthiness allows that to happen. Also, it does enhance better and good relationships because relationships are not easy. They can be very complicated, and sometimes life gets us. And so when you are mentally healthy, you will be able to manage and deal with life and whatever it throws at you. And the second thing I think that having good mental healthiness is that you're able to have better physical health. Research has shown that good mental health, being mentally healthy, is linked to better physical health outcomes, such as stronger immune system and reducing risk in chronic diseases and a better mental well-being. So I think that mental healthiness contributes to all of that.
Good planning.
Just to add on, I'm sorry.
Good planning.
Good planning, good preparation, planning for the future, dealing with the present. All of those are good traits of good mental healthiness.
Accepting the necessity of being flexible in your planning, because sometimes the best plans fall short. So there has to be some degree of flexibility in moving through a plan and accepting that plans do fail, but they also leave space for new plans to be made.
Right. I think that the point is that there's a term that we use in psychology called a psychological flexibility. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that being able to be flexible, to maneuver or to adapt and to adjust things that maybe don't go your way, and you're able to create another route or another way or come up with some other alternative plans to be successful. Go ahead, Brother Phillips.
I thought, Dr. Hunt, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Phillips. Go ahead, Dr. Phillips.
Great points. What I would just add to it, one of the things we talk about in Omega Psi Phi is proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance, which prevents pain. So what we talk about and what we mean by that is taking a more proactive approach. And that proactive approach can be helpful as far as the gentleman who was asking the question, Alay, keeping you in a psychologically positive space, but also keeping you in a space with the capacity. And what do I mean by that proper planning? Making sure you know what you're dealing with. So have you gone and got your annual physical? Because as Dr. Hines says, that mental health and your physical health are tied into each other. So if you've got some issues health-wise that you're not addressing, this is not going to put you in that mental happiness or healthiness space to have the capacity to deal with things that may come up. What type of healthy habits do you have? Do you exercise? Are you exercising regularly? Because exercise is another thing that can contribute directly to you having a better mental well-being. In addition to that, I know in my family growing up in Queens, New York, I did not have great models of good communication. So working on me being a more effective communicator as a Black male has been something that's very important, especially at the times when I may be in a space where I have to express how I'm feeling emotionally. Because unfortunately, our inability to express ourselves emotionally can lead us out of that mental happiness space that you relate to. I think another thing I would add to is the power of meditation. Having a few moments each day of some silence so you can be with your thoughts. to try to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to stay in a positive space. So those would be just a few things that I would add on to what Dr. Hines said.
All right. Thank you so much, Todd, for calling in. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number to call in and weigh in on the conversation as we talk about National Minority Mental Health Month. We're getting ready to go into the second hour of the mental space with Sean Garvey, and I am still speaking with Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines, the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. So please call in with your comments at 404-726-1380. And in the second hour of the program, I'm going to have my producers play clips and excerpts from yesterday's address by President Joe Biden and his plans on pushing mental health to millions and millions of Americans. Just in case you did not get a chance to check out the speech, we're going to play some clips from the speech from yesterday. And also we're going to talk about Brother, You Are On My Mind partnership with the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and so much more. Okay, so for all my people out there, stay tuned. We got news coming up at the top of the hour, and please log on to WAOK.com, WAOK.com, and on the Odyssey app so you can hear everything, okay? You won't just only see my handsome-looking face on IG Live and on the Flow Television Network, but please listen on WAOK.com. Sean Garvey, The Mental Space.
Thanks.
one gives us motivation to do something that the other principle of belief refuse to allow us to do. Then one of the greatest cause of this is listening to advocates of two different opinions. You can listen to Martin Luther King, and you can listen to Farrakhan, and then there comes a conflict of conscience in your mind. It's like two fighters battling it out in your subconscious, and you don't know which one to follow. But one of the things we need to do is decide what principles in life you want to follow, and keep those principles, feed those, and then block out all the others. Otherwise, you have what's known as a split personality. You ever seen those people advocate something for one minute, and then the next day they are advocating something completely different, and you don't know what to think of them. It's like they got a split personality with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Split personality. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Hang tight, Joe. Let's go over to our guests. Tonight's guest, the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Hines. I'll start with you, Dr. Phillips. Is it a case of split personality when it comes to mental health? Let's say you.
For real, and that is the impact of race and racism on our mental health as African Americans and as African American men. I think that a refusal to acknowledge, racial trauma as far as how we approach our own mental health is a mistake. I mean, I can remember, when I was in medical school in the 90s, and I was, in school in 92, and I remember Rodney King occurring, and no one's asking me how I'm doing. It's only one of a few black males in this space, and I'm tight. I'm tight all day long. I'm tight because I'm frustrated with what I'm seeing and what I've seen and what was happening and about to happen. And there was no concern about how does my feelings pertaining to that incident really matter. And I think as we've gotten further along, I think with the incident in Minnesota with Mr. Floyd, God rest his soul, that was another situation where you saw something happening there that impacted us all over the country, all over the world. So I would agree with you, sir, that we do need to be mindful of racism and the experience that we have had with racism in these United States of America. And it isn't just they did something to me directly. It could happen to my brother Louis Hines, where he's at, and I'm states away, and it still can affect me in a way that impacts how I'm feeling. So I hope that sort of addresses in part what you were alluding to, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we still have Joe, or did he hang up? If not, okay, let's go ahead and go to Dr. Hines. Dr. Hines, do you have a different retort?
Yes, racial trauma refers to psychological and emotional distress
Do you want to end
experienced by
the
an
president?
individual as a result of exposure to racism and discrimination and prejudice based on their race or ethnicity. So I think that does impact one's mental health. It affects, it can lead definitely to significant mental health challenges like anxiety or depression or even schizophrenia symptoms. That split personality. And so it does impact our mental state, but it also impacts our emotional distress because individuals experiencing a racial trauma may struggle with intense emotions like anger and fear and sadness and hopelessness because of something has happened or they heard of something has happened. So it's almost like a PTSD. When we hear about racial trauma, it does impact us.
All right, 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Gentlemen, I want to switch gears for one moment and revisit a little bit of what I said just a few moments ago. President Joe Biden on Tuesday announced new action to guarantee access to mental health care, unveiling a proposed rule that would ensure mental health benefits on private insurance plans more closely mirror physical health benefits. So let's play a clip from yesterday's speech.
Still make it far too difficult to get mental health care. Their networks of providers are badly inadequate, with far fewer psychiatrists, therapists, and other mental health professionals compared to all other medical specialties. Now, as a result, even with private insurance, patients are often forced to seek out-of-network care at significantly higher costs if they can find it. Seeing a therapist can cost $200 a visit or more. That's $800 a month if you have a session every week, which is often what patients need. Many families, significant number of families, cannot afford that. And by the way, think about think about just how difficult it is to begin with to say, I need help. You break your arm, you have no trouble going to emergency, I need help. You're having a mental crisis. It's hard. It's hard to say, I need help.
He says, I need help. He's speaking on behalf of the underprivileged families across the country that don't have the proper access to medical care or to some form of mental health. So, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Hines, hold everything that you want to say regarding the president's speech on yesterday and his announcement on taking new action to guarantee access to mental health care. And we're going to play another clip when we come back from the break. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. On the live line, we're talking to the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines, on National Minority Mental Health Month. It's Sean Garvey, Mental Space, WAOK, and on the Flow Television Network.
plans would require health insurance plans to identify the gaps in the mental health care that they provide. For example, they need to measure how many mental health providers are in their network, how much they are paying these providers, how difficult it is for someone to join their network, how often doctors have to get the so-called to treat a patient. Some of you have dealt with this more than once. You get referrals to see mental health specialists, but when you make an appointment, they say, I can't see you until your doctor submits the paperwork and gets special permission from the insurance company. Give me a break.
Joe said, give me a break. Give me a break. Ridiculous.
It prevents people from getting the care they need. Now insurance companies are going to have to measure how often they require prior authorization and how
30
often
seconds.
they deny those requests. Right now, many health plans don't collect data. Under my administration new plan, they will be required to collect that data. None of the existing law and facts reveal that mental health care is not being treated on par with physical health care. They be required by law to fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it.
That was President Joe Biden expressing his frustration towards of course, Congress and the powers that be on the fact that there needs to be new legislation on the table for guaranteed access to mental health care. 404-726-1380. Telephone number, mental space, Sean Garvey, with my special guest, the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines. Of course, President Joe Biden on Tuesday, which was yesterday, announced new action to guarantee access to mental health care, unveiling a proposed rule that would ensure mental health benefits on private insurance plans more closely mirror physical health benefits. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Phillips. When you hear some of this parts that President Joe Biden mentioned in his speech, how does that affect you? Being of a minority, being a black man yourself, and being in the field and the profession that you in, how much of what President Biden said in his speech on yesterday impact you or could impact you?
Help with their mental health issues. I think it improves access. I think some of the data gathering is actually even more important because that's able to identify where are these pitfalls in the system that people are falling through so that we can improve how the system works. So I think that the data gathering is going to be helpful. Maybe not immediately, but it's something that in the near future we'll start to see some improvement as far as people having better access to quality, not just mental health care, but quality, culturally sensitive mental health care, because those additional variables can play a significant role in drawing someone to you, but also pushing someone away and making them feel like they're not able to come to the space to be helped.
Okay. All right. Let's say you, Dr. Hines. Let's say you.
Those initiatives align with UN goals to promote mental health and equality, as well as reducing the disparity in access to care. I think his proposal to change policies and to increase funding for mental health services and expand access to certain populations. So I think that's a right step in the right direction. At the end of his speech, he talks about rich people having access and not so rich people who don't have access. Well, the reason why rich people have access to mental health care is because they have private insurance. And non-rich people or poor people or low-income people don't have access, or they have governmental insurance. And sometimes that can be a barrier in getting access to mental health care as well as medical care.
Let me ask the two of you guys, two of you gentlemen on the live line, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines. We seen the actor who played Ted Lasso on Apple TV do a press conference along with the cast from the Apple TV series Ted Lasso. They went to the White House and they spoke very much about mental health and the need for a reform of mental health, and also just the series of events leading up to mental health issues and these type of conversations on mental health. Do you think that's what motivated or pushed the needle, if you will, for President Biden to come out and demand changes and demand action for people who lack access to mental health care? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Hines.
I think that for years now, we have seen celebrities and athletes who now publicly talk about mental health. So they have become mental health advocates for those and trying to break down the stigma. So I think that a lot of these star celebrities, athletes have definitely influenced the government and particularly the president to make some changes and also with the mental health reform laws. So I think that has a significant influence.
I can agree with that. I believe that we live in a celebrity culture world, and people tend to gravitate, Dr. Hines, to celebrities and to people of influence. Look, we turn on the TV all the time. We go on social media. We get a lot of news alerts on our phones about what celebrities are doing or what a celebrity said. So I can attest to that. I can agree to that a lot of celebrity influence has played a pivotal role in President Joe Biden to make that announcement on Tuesday, including all the things that's been going on outside the country. Like, let's just take it a little bit outside of the minorities spectrum, right? So the amount of mass shootings happening across the country, especially some in which hit almost home to us, and to what Dr. Phillips and you, Dr. Hines, alluded to about racism in this country, and just some of the events that have taken place in this country to bring issues and the problems that so many people of the African diaspora, of the minority community, have faced over the years. So, Dr. Phillips, what do you think also, in your mind, in your observation, what do you think also pushed the needle for President Biden to make the announcement on Tuesday?
So I think that can bring a lot of attention to this. I think, again, we got to utilize our local elected officials, going to them, telling them about the things that we can do better as a community if we have more convenient access to. So those are a couple spaces I think that can help. But I think, again, hopefully President Biden is feeling all of these different spaces, because as you just alluded to, we are also seeing stories in the news of individuals that have significant mental health issues, and they are either causing significant damage, but more importantly, they're being mishandled in the community because people think, for example, like the gentleman in New York that was strangled on the subway, he's walking around asking individuals for food, and another person took it upon himself, felt that he was being threatened, and put him in a chokehold, and he ended up killing him. And when we found out about this guy's story, he had just come out, he had been in and out of mental institutions. He had just gotten out recently, and he had not had enough medication to deal with the diagnosis that he was given. He did not have a definite place where he could follow up. So I think that if we don't address these issues, the things that people don't like to see are not going to go anywhere. Because when we talk about something like homelessness, how much is homelessness affected by mental health issues? And again, that's just only one space. When we look at crime, how many people committing crime are dealing with mental health issues? So maybe if we start to be more proactive or preventative with this process or problem, maybe we would be able to prevent some issues that are happening down the road that are causing significant, impact in our community.
404-726-1380 is the telephone number. When we come back, gentlemen, I'm going to play another clip from President Joe Biden's speech, but I also want to get into, brother, you're on my mind, the initiative, the partnership with the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities, since we are on the subject of National Minority Mental Health Month. 404-726-1380. It is The Mental Space. Sean Garvey, WAOK, and on the Flow Television Network.
provide a range of services, including crisis support available 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and they serve anyone who needs care regardless of their ability to pay. There are now 500 of these clinics in 46 states. We've added more than 140 during my administration. And we're going to keep increasing the number because we need more than the 500. We've also launched a nationwide crisis hotline, 988. Let me say it again. The crisis hotline is 988, where you can connect with a trained crisis counselor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Over 5 million people have called that hotline since it launched it a year ago. Wow. 5 million. Can we say that the problem? We've invested $1 billion to help schools hire, train 14,000 new mental health counselors in schools across the country. And we're taking steps to address the harm of social media.
Once again, that was President Joe Biden's speech from yesterday on mental health, and also stressing the 3-digit number 988 if you or someone you know is facing a mental health crisis. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Back to our special guest with us, the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines. Brother, You're on My Mind is a partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and the Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. The initiative is intended to raise awareness of the mental health challenges associated with depression and stress that affect African American men and their families. I'm gonna go over to you, Dr. Phillips. Tell us the premise behind the Brother You're on My Mind. How did it come about? And some more information that our WAOK listeners need to know about this initiative. All right, Dr. Phillips or Dr. Hines. There we go. That works.
Of the year, and it is, as was stated earlier, a push to bring awareness, not only in our graduate chapters, but also amongst our undergraduate chapters, meaning chapters that contain members that are still in college, because mental health issues is not exclusive to elder or older individuals. So in doing that, we bring awareness to it, and I think as we've touched throughout this conversation, the more we're comfortable and familiar, the more likely we are able to look out for help when we're dealing with this type of problem. Our partnership with the National Institute of Minority Mental Health issues is in part to allow our mission to collaborate with another entity that's doing the same type of work on a national basis, so that we can work together to enhance the reach that both of us have.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines. Of course, you want to add on to that? I want to throw out some facts here. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among African Americans 15 to 24 years old. Untreated mental illness can also make African American men more vulnerable to substance abuse, homelessness, incarceration, and homicide. And I will say that as a mental health advocate myself, I experienced 2 out of the 4, and that was substance abuse and homelessness. And if anybody, of course, you all know that the mental space, which have been airing on WAOK since February of 2022, I've been very candid about my mental health journey. And of course, we had a couple of episodes dedicated to Black men and mental health. And I know we're getting ready to come up on another break, but how is it important? And Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines, you can answer this question before we go to break. How important is it to have conversations on what Black men are dealing with? Of course, we hear our sisters, our queens, talk about the adversities that they go through. But how often should we have conversations about Black men and their mental health?
Mentioned some time ago earlier in our conversation, when you have individuals that look like you, that endorse these types of situations, it makes you feel a lot more comfortable. I'm going to keep it 100 right now. I've seen a counselor before. I felt feelings of anxiety and depression, and I found seeing a counselor an incredible experience for me because it put me in a space that I was more capable of expressing myself in a productive way when I was feeling emotional. So when I share this to my patients, especially, those that look like me, I get that they feel a higher level of trust, a higher level of connection, a higher level of understanding, and they're more likely to start to comply with some of the recommendations you're making because they're like, well, if Dr. Phillips is doing it and it affected him, I think I should try it as well. So I think knowing people that have had issues, talking to people about this, it can make people more comfortable with the whole idea of pursuing help for their mental health challenges.
Wait. Hey, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're getting ready to come to the end of the mental space, but hold that thought. When we come back, we're going to play one more excerpt from President Joe Biden's speech on yesterday, and then we're going to come back and let Dr. Hines finish his assessment. It is the mental space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK, and on the Flow Television Network.
Follow the mental space on social media at Mental Space Live on Instagram and
my special guest via Zoom, the men of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, still hanging out with us, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines, talking about Brother, You're on My Mind, a partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and is an initiative intended to raise awareness of the mental health challenges associated with depression and stress that affect African American men and their families. Before the break, Dr. Hines, you wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Phillips stated.
To talk about mental health. Remember, historically, the mental health discussions and seeking help was something that we never even thought about, you know. But now, again, as more athletes, celebrities, rappers, famous people are coming out more, I think now we can admit that it is okay. And because it's okay, many black men now, particularly young black males, are now stepping up and seeking mental health assistance. I know in my personal practice, I see a lot of black males, particularly in Atlanta, that I have to fly in once a month to see clients because they can't find a black male therapist. And so I think it's important for black men to talk because we don't talk about mental health, you know. And when black men open up and discuss mental health, it helps to challenge the stigma that's surrounding the mental health in the community. This creates more of a supportive and understanding environment for those who might want to and need to seek help. And lastly, I think that talking about mental health encourages practice of self-care and emotional well-being. Because I think that when we talk about caring for ourselves mentally, you know, it's easier to care for ourselves physically. And we ought to care for ourselves physically than we care for ourselves mentally. So
Yeah, I think it's very important too. And I've heard people say in the past that, oh, well, you would be okay if you just cut off the TV, if you just cut off access to social media, right? And things of that sort. But that doesn't serve as the cure to end mental health or to end mental health issues or mental illnesses, because you can become mentally ill by not watching television, by not consuming to social media, but to other things outside of those mediums. I mean, can you agree or do you disagree, Dr. Phillips or Dr. Hines? One of you? I agree. I agree. So we got one more question from a listener that called in. He didn't want to go on air, but he wanted to ask you, either Dr. Phillips or Dr. Hines, the importance of team building. What does that look like as we have this discussion on minority mental health awareness? What does the importance, I should say, the what does that look like? The importance of team building. Dr. Hines?
with your supervisor and getting an understanding, cooperation, having that collaboration with members that which you work with does help in your mental space. I know that it does improve communication, team building. I know it does enhance collaboration, team building, and I do know that it does increase productivity. So I think team building is very essential in workplaces as well as in relationships because it does addresses conflicts. and reduces conflict. So it doesn't establish trust and support. So I think team building is very important, not only in the work setting, but also in relationships.
All right. Okay. So, gentlemen, we're running out of time here, but let's quickly talk about, brother, you are on my mind, the partnership between the National Institute on Minority Health Disparities and the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. What is next for the initiative along with your organization, and what can people expect from this beautiful partnership? Dr. Phillips?
Trying to roll out some of our efforts on college campuses, because we have seen, as I stated a few moments ago, that there is an unappreciated increase in mental health issues in our young people. And we need to start this preventative mental health wellness plan as early as possible. So making our young people aware of it, having them be aware of what their team is, who they can talk to, where they can go to for assistance. Those are the types of projects that we're going to be working on. Also looking at how we can be part of research moving forward, because again, one of the things that the pandemic exposed is our reluctance to participate in medical research as a community. And it's rightfully so because of traumas that we've experienced historically. However, when we start looking at the type of treatments that can come out of it, if we don't have individuals that look like us that participate in good quality research, how can we come up with treatments that are good for us as an ethnic group in this country?
All right, gentlemen. Well, gentlemen, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Hines, I really appreciate you guys for just taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this important conversation and for joining with us here on the Mental Space. Any final words, any contact information or website information you want to give to our listeners, especially people and Black men, African-American men that want to volunteer and become a part of your organization? So the floor is yours. I'm going to start with Dr. Phillips. Okay, and Dr. Hines.
Health. And a few of them that come to mind is that, don't be ashamed to reach out for support, reaching out for help, practice mindfulness. I think Dr. Phillips talked about practicing meditation, setting boundaries for yourself, healthy boundaries personally and professionally, engage in physical activity, cultivate hobbies and interests, practice self-compassion, practice self-forgiveness, celebrate the small achievements that you accomplish in life, and get plenty of rest and relax.
I like how you said the word. I'm glad that you used the key word relax as we are getting ready to conclude the show, because we all need to relax to manage our mental health. Website information, gentlemen, contact information. Hello, gentlemen, do you have a website or contact information for more information about your initiative or your organization?
You can actually go to our national website. There's going to be an icon on it. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, OPPF.org. On our national website, there's information that you can hover on the icon to get information about our Brother You're on My Mind program as it pertains to you in your local area.
There you have it. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
PA.com.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Hines. Thank you so much for coming on the mental space and providing great information to our listeners this evening. All right. That is the men of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. This has been my time, ladies and gentlemen. The mental space. We do this each and every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And please follow my senior citizens out there during the summer months. Stay cool. Please stay cool. Story was out about an Arizona woman who died after her power was cut over a $51 debt that forced utilities to change. And this happened in Arizona. So please, people out there, make sure you check on your neighbors, especially our senior citizens and our elders throughout these summer months, okay? Thank you to everybody. Thank you to my producers, Simone on the board, our executive producer, Michelle, our associate producer, Danje on the graphics, Leo for the videography, Joyce Littel, our WAOK brand manager, Reggie Rouse, Rick Caffey, the entire team here at Odyssey Atlanta, and to you, the WAOK listeners, and to my mother, Rhonda, for always